So for today's video, we're taking a break from our typical topics, and I wanted to do something on tips on writing, tips on publishing a book, because I know I've got a really creative group of people who subscribe to this channel, and I know some of you have already published, and so if you have any other hints, please drop a couple lines in the comments. But there's probably many of you who've just considered writing. You feel you got something percolating in there, and you know you've got at least one, maybe 10 or 15 books ready to come out. And so the reason I wanted to do this video is because I've made every possible mistake you could make. I was that person in my first English class in college, and the professor sat in front of the entire class reading my paper, and every single horrific mistake I could have possibly made he shared with the class. And this is back in the 80s, so he stood up and walked over and handed me the paper back. I'm pretty sure it was an F, and absolutely deserved every bit of it. I wrote it essentially unconsciously, and what I mean by that is I wasn't being very mindful. And so even when we look at proofs at our drafts, there's this tendency to let the mind wander a little bit, and being conscious and being mindful of every single word you're putting on paper. I mean, that is really, really critical. And so I went from that to, publishing a self-published book, and then ended up with the No Self, No Problem, which has done really well. In fact, it's hit the #1 spot several times in the U.S., across the globe. It's been translated into several different languages now. So something happened between that English class and now, and most of it is just getting out of my own way and transferring it over from ego-based motives to something of a higher purpose, and recognizing the absolute need for a guide. And so imagine there's this mountain, and it's been climbed for hundreds of years, and all the guides and experts, they have all the tricky spots mapped out perfectly. And you decide I'm just going to go it on my own because I'm okay with this. And that's really not, it's just not very wise. And so that's what I said. I said, I'm just going to go out on my own, and tripped and fell into about everything you could imagine. And so first, why even write a book? Well, you can talk on shows and podcasts and do interviews, and you can have all kinds of ideas. None of it is actually currency the way a book is. Regardless of where we're at in terms of technology, a book is still considered the main currency that opens doors. And so just by having, this book, I can tell you it has opened up so many doors. And there's a good reason for this, because when you put a book together and then you publish it, you're putting it out to the whole world these days. And that opens it up to so much potential criticism. And if you can survive that, if you could survive that open, critical world and come away with low numbers of 1- and 2-star reviews, it tells the world you're on to something. You've done something that's worth reading and sharing with other people. And so, again, when I started, I wasn't really going to be a writer. I mean, I wrote as an academic, but academic papers are incredibly restricted. They're by design not meant to be very creative. They're just descriptive. And it was about 2009, and had gotten very sick and couldn't sleep for a whole week. And that's when this idea came to me. And so the whole book came to me at once. And so that part, that's you and your higher intelligence, the relationship you've got going on. And so that part all came out quite well. Where I made my mistake is I didn't find a guide. I said, I'm just going to hit this on my own. And you can see, I just did everything myself. The incredibly long title, which entertained me quite a bit, how the left brain plays unending games of self-improvement. The picture of the Buddha there, that was hand-drawn on our kitchen table when my kids were still little enough. They were running around literally screaming while I was drawing that by hand and by memory. And I was quite impressed, and I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. But again, I was really writing it for myself. And when I looked at it, I said, okay, look, I've got all the mysteries of the universe explained. I've got lots of Star Trek references, and I've got tons of Seinfeld references. To me, in my head and my ego, all the boxes were checked, and I was ready to go. So, in steps my now publisher, Randy Davila, president of Hierophant Publishing. And actually, he found this from a student assignment. So he teaches people writing and publishing. And a student brought this in as an example of all the mistakes you can possibly make when doing your own cover and title. And while I made all those mistakes, it turned out, well, the content was savable. And Randy became a guide, a much needed guide. And so I wanted to share a few things with you. One, I have his book, How to Think Like a Publisher. It's on Amazon. And make that incredibly small investment because, again, Randy has, when you find someone, it doesn't have to be Randy, just someone who has been up the mountain and someone who has helped others up the mountain. I mean, he's got it mapped out. He knows these little areas that you're going to make a mistake on. And that's so critical to not go it on your own. And so check out that book. But also he's teaching a class in February. It's a 4-week online class. And so if you really are considering going forth with, and maybe you already have the ideas down, but you want to get into that currency, that having an actual published book, don't go it on your own. I'm the kind of, I love individuality. I'd tell you all kinds of things that are worth going at it on your own, but not publishing a book. And even if you may ask your friends and family, so imagine you do have a couple ideas and you've got a draft, still, I would appeal to the guides who have been there and published, not your friends and family. They love you. They're going to tell you that your ideas are amazing, even though they may take you the worst possible path up that mountain. And so when we first started working together, what these guides do is they help you with unknown unknowns, things that you've never even pondered, things like getting a platform. Well, and that's something maybe you'll have pondered, but should you self-publish? There's nothing necessarily wrong with self-publishing. It just depends on what the nature of your work is. What's your goal? Do you want to entertain or do you want to inform? And those are things I had never even pondered, none of it, because they were unknown unknowns, just like some strange, tricky cliff going up that mountain. It hits you when you had no idea to even ponder it. And so I'll leave you with one other tip, and this is another thing I've picked up over the years, but again, find that guide. Don't rely, this is me. I'm always talking about intuition, but this is one of those times and places where it's just skip your own intuitions on it. Find someone who's already been there and already had the experience. But there's one other thing I'll leave you with, and that's writing these ideas down. And so for me, most of the time, I get these when I'm on a walk, anywhere. Lots of times it's places that are actually inconvenient. This higher intelligence seems to call on me at times. I was just driving my son home from soccer, and it's rainy and it's dark and it's Western Pennsylvania roads. And all of a sudden, I was just hit with so many insights from this higher intelligence, and I couldn't write it down. So I really tried to focus until I got home, then quickly wrote it down because and this is consistent with my other videos. We think, well, I'm pretty sure I'll remember that. And that thinking machine is not a very good GPS system to guide us through reality. So chances are you're far better off writing these down. And before you know it, if you keep it all even in one book, you'll have enough for a draft of a book. And so let me know if you have any other questions in the comments. And if you've started a book, share some of your comments.